I'll continue with the Restoration of Heart series, and this presentation is Holy Mother Han reliving the Danbury spirit. You have heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I said to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. So this is the Bible verse in Matthew that talks about loving your enemy, Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 to 48. Loving the unlovable, those who persecute us. That's basically the foundation laid by Jesus 2,000 years ago. That's also the very essence of God's love, loving your enemy. So here in both scripture 2, how to resemble God and attend God in heaven. What kind of a person can be close to God and attend Him in the kingdom of heaven? One who resembles God. Since the nature of God is to love his enemy, then the person who tries to love his or her enemy and invests him or herself completely for that purpose will be able to live near God's royal throne. From this standpoint, the most precious education is to learn to love your enemies. The noblest training to cultivate your mind is to train yourself to always make effort to love your enemy. So, by loving our enemy, we are actually resembling God. And since we are living in the era where God is living with us in this physical world, the era of the transcendent God now has come to God's full eminence. And especially after the victorious entrance of Chongyi Sanctum, God is really living with us. If only we can invite him to come into our lives. And we can even invite ourselves to dwell in God's heart. So when we resemble God, God can dwell with us. So loving your enemy is the very nature of God, since the nature of God is to love his enemy. So this is how we can live this kind of life where God can dwell within our hearts. So how to win over someone who hates you? The Lee administration obviously hates True Mother, and they are destined to not only detain our True Mother, but to prosecute and persecute and to jail our True Mother. That's the Lee administration. So the prosecutor hates our True Mother. That's the very essence of who they are. I'm teaching you to love those who hate you. If you love them, sooner or later they will come to like you. If you return good 3 times for every time someone does you wrong, eventually that person will bow his head. Try it yourself and see if I'm right or not. Everyone has a conscience. So even the Lee administration, President Lee also has a conscience. So that's the way to win over someone who hates you. So Kim Il-sung tried to kill True Father at least 2 times. But True Father's way is to love him. And finally, Kim Il-sung was the one who invited True Father, and they embraced. This is really God's way of how we can win over our enemy just by loving them unconditionally. So before they went to meet with Kim Il-sung, they went to Hawaii to make sure that there is no single trace of resentment towards him. That's the preparation the two parents did before meeting with Kim Il-sung. So that's the way that we can win over someone who hates you. And we know very well in our own life, we need to gain this certificate from Satan. We need to win over our fallen nature, to get rid of a fallen nature. And the only way is to receive this certificate from Satan. As Jesus was dying on the cross, he prayed for his enemies rather than for himself. He prayed that his sacrifice would become the source of their blessing. Then Satan has no choice but to issue a certificate saying, this son or daughter of God loved me, their enemy. Therefore, I cannot stand in the way of God loving this person. Satan can no longer hold on to this grudge. But when he sees God embracing and loving the person, he must say, Amen. This is how you must clear your relationship with Satan. Recently, I posted in our group chat here in Las Vegas, and also at the same time when we had this national call with Reverend Damien Dunkley, I researched on AI to see whether Kim Jong-un has requested the Lee administration or even President Lee to release our true mother. Interestingly, President Lee Kim Jong-un has every good reason to request this, even though it's not corroborated at all that he make this request, but he has every good reasons to do it according to this AI research. So really, if you think about it, it's Satan's side represented by North Korea, represented by Kim Jong-un. If he, if he asked President Lee to release True Mother and hopefully even all charges against her, drop all charges, don't you think that this is Satan issuing a certificate, to true parents, to true mother, particularly, that he's surrendering the power, authority, and sovereignty. So I truly believe that, we will never know if True Mother is released, whether he actually did that, But I am certainly praying that Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il is working with Kim Jong-un to request this release of our True Mother. So who are our enemies? In the course of restoration, that which you love most becomes your enemy. Your spouse, your children, the ones that you love most are the ones that ultimately become your enemy. Why? To men, women are the enemy, and to women, men are the enemy. Likewise, children are the enemy of parents, and parents are the enemy of children. In the same way, Adam and Eve regards God as their enemy. Fallen men first regard God as their enemy because they don't believe in God. I was in that position before. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I was in the position, I was a communist. So in that sense, I was an enemy. God is my enemy. God doesn't regard us as an enemy, even though we violated his heart, caused so much hurt and pain. But the nature of God, as we read before, is to love our enemy. So this is the reason why that loving our enemy is so necessary, not only to gain a certificate from Satan, but to bring about unity and harmony and love within our family. This is the fundamental way that we can win over Satan in our family, not with some external enemy. Yeah, our loved ones are our enemies. And America, why is America a great nation? Because she loved her enemy. And when America stopped loving her enemy nation, when America doesn't see herself as a nation to love the enemy nation, then America no longer is great. Yeah. So you could say that Trump is successful in many countries that are at war to bring peace. The reason is because he loves his enemy. As representative of America, he loves his enemy. In the same way, we look at America. Why is America great? Because after the Second World War, America reached out to the defeated nation and helped the defeated nation to develop, whether it's Japan or whether it's Europe. Yeah. So how did America become a nation that is respected throughout the world? It is because after World War II, she financially helped all the enemy nations that she had defeated. Since she gave it on behalf of God, her position was elevated. Yet when she reduced her giving, her position gradually declined. So America has declined, but with Trump loving the nations that they fought with, the nations that kill Americans, America can be restored to its proper role to bring world peace. And let's not forget, when attempt was made on President Trump, True Mother claimed very clearly that she was praying for him. She was in Las Vegas. She made sure that she came here. And because of that, his life was spared. So in this sense, you could see that God has chosen someone to follow the way of Christ. Follow the way of God. Love your enemy nation. So can we sacrifice without resentment? Every time we make a sacrifice, not only God is hoping for that sacrifice, to be offered to God, but Satan is also trying to claim that sacrifice. This is something that we have to recognize all the time. So when you sacrifice, you have to be very careful that we do not develop resentment. One cause of following the will was that my clan came to ruin. This is true, Father. My father, my mother, and most of my siblings perished. Yet with the destruction of my family, God drove me to love all of you. By sacrificing my family and relatives, God led me to love my enemies and their families. So it explains that this is unificationism. It explains that God sacrifices his own sons and daughters and those who are closest to him as he loves and strives to recover nations and people that are owned by the enemy. So I pray to ask whether, how is Heavenly Mother feeling about True Mother in the detention center with no windows, which is cold and damp, and she's having pain, pain and aches everywhere. So Nansunim even encouraged True Mother to report her pain and her aches because she led a life of total sacrifice, never even sharing her aches and pains that she goes through. But in the detention center, she has to make known so that doctors can recall. She was taking Tylenol, remember? And Mansuk Nim said, Tylenol will destroy your liver. She regarded herself as a sacrifice. As a sacrifice. Remember, when God sacrificed his own sons and daughters, those who are closest to him. So how did Heavenly Mother feel about her sacrificing? She is obviously suffering because for God to recover nations and peoples, which means what? North Korea. Yeah, North Korea. So when I ask how does Heavenly Mother feels, I receive very clear direction, very clear signs that Heavenly Mother is weeping with so much tears. Another day I will share with you some of the experience I had about Heavenly Mother's heart, especially witnessing how True Mother is actually, sacrificing herself, her physical health, you know, to recover nations and people that are owned by the enemy. That's the reason why she has to go through this, you know. And how do we love our enemy spouse? So when Koreans and Japanese members received the marriage blessing, it was a blessing in so many ways, but in the beginning it was so difficult. Yeah. Their course was by no means smooth as they prepared for their marriage and spent the first years of their life together, but their commitment to live for a purpose beyond themselves, centered on God, gave them the strength necessary to liquidate the underlying terrible history of their two nations that had been enemies. They were able to resolve this bitter root through coming to understand each other and healing each other's pain. Our lead pastor is Resford, and I'm sure you all know him because he was in New York. Yeah, his mother is Japanese. So I remember during my 6,000 blessing, True Father talked about 1 hour trying to convince Korean sisters to be matched and blessed to Africans. But it was so difficult. But because of Japanese sisters volunteering to be matched and blessed to African, we have a great brother in Resford, yeah, loving your enemy spouse. But most importantly, True Mother is not just reviving Danbury spirit, but she's reliving Danbury spirit. What's the Danbury spirit that she talks about in a memoir? Let's be reminded. Our movement most fundamental ethic is love your enemy and live for their sake, sacrificing oneself even in the face of death, and going even further to forgive and love those who accuse and deceive is what we call Danbury spirit. The Danbury spirit is to give and give even after everything has been taken away, to forgive those involved, then to persevere, knowing something greater is bound to occur in accord with heavenly will. So amazing blessing could come through Danbury. Yeah, amazing blessing. Let's not forget, Washington Times was established after True Father went into Danbury. And I'm sure many, many other blessings came as well, you know. But it is through Washington Times that we are able to gain the support of many, many politicians, like Gingrich, like Mike Pompeo, just to name a few. even Trump, President Trump. Yeah. So true mother is going through this sacrifice and suffering, definitely for a high purpose. Of course, if we have totally united with her, I don't think she need to go through this suffering. But she willingly go through this suffering because of something greater that Heavenly Mother, Heavenly Parent can arrange. Yeah. And we have to know that loving our enemy is no small matter. It's a battle against evil. Yet few realize that they mark the boundary between victory and defeat in the battle between God and Satan. Love your enemy determines that victory, you know. So God says, love your enemy and pursues a strategy of love. The words love your enemy is the culmination of Jesus' teaching. This is from Chama Moron. Yeah. And this is my last slide, that one. And this is on detention day that True Mother was going in September 22nd. Do not worry about me. Do not pray for me. Please pray and offer devotion so that you, your families, our unification family, and the will of our Heavenly Parent may be fulfilled. Reassuring us, I love you, blessed family. Could this be the soul spirit? Reliving the Danbury spirit? So in this sense, we really have to pray. And I heard more recently that the Korean people are uprising against President Lee. The Christian and religious leaders should have rose up against the government. But because it's political, many of them choose not to do that. But now the Korean people are uprising against their government, their leader. So something is amazingly happening. We don't know what, But I believe ultimately it is the reunification of our fatherland. How is that going to happen? I believe that True Mother did exactly did go this way of suffering, none other than for the reunification of our fatherland. This is my belief. I don't know whether it's going to happen, but I certainly